Hello.
Tricia Helfer.
Hi. I was elected for the first question, so I hear you screwing around on your husband.
Before I started recording.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I hear you're screwing around on your husband.
I think there's a lot of screwing around on other people's, on their spouses. No, I think with the ship there's genetic pairing, so basically arranged marriages. Not all marriage, and that's not to say some of the marriages aren't, fully, love each other and everything. But yeah, no, there's going to be a lot of love triangles and things like that, because if you are set up with who you are married, that of course your heart may desire something else. I think in Viandra's case, it's not so much about desire; it's much more about power. The captain and Viandra do love each other, but I would say they're more of a partnership. They respect each other. They do love each other, but there's also a lot of damage there. I think Viandra loved William more than William loved Viandra in the beginning, and so I think there is a lot of damage there.
So does Viandra side with all the Earthers? Does she really want to go back?
No, Viandra definitely wants to make it to Proxima. She believes in the mission, in the making it to Proxima, and she will do anything to keep her husband in power. Definitely we're in a time period on the ship that the women were still definitely behind the man more so, but she is a equal partner in terms of she's very political, and she will do what she needs to do to keep her husband in power, which in turn keeps her in power.
So her little affair may not be just because she wants to cheat on her husband. It may have to do with recon.
Yes, it certainly does have to do with recon. I think there is. Yes. You hit the nail on the head there.
Keep your enemies closer.
Yes, keep your enemies closer, and definitely Viandra's extremely political. She knows what it's political maneuvering for her.
So 1960s women, but they're moving forward even faster maybe than the actual sexual revolution and all that stuff, because they're...
Yeah, I mean, it's not the same as on Earth. I think we're moving slower than on Earth, but I had a question over here that if the sexual revolution was already maybe starting in that time period, then why wouldn't it continue on the ship as well as it has on Earth? And I think it has, but I think everything is moving slower, because the people that chose to go on the ship were adults, right? But if they're adults in 63, then it's more the 40s and 50s that is their kind of mentality. And even if they are progressive, they're early 60s. But, so the first generation is born on the ship, like myself and the captain, our parents were maybe a little bit stricter and a little bit more in that, than as progressive. And so if you're not being, like on Earth, you're being, what am I trying to say? There's more opportunity, I think, for growth and diversity of ideas and ideologies than there is necessarily from a group of people that were, born in 30s, 40s, 50s.
Okay.
On the ship, and that's our basis. That's what we're dealing with. But there is going to be development. There is going to be. It's not like we're just stuck in the early 60s. There is going to be change, and there is going to be movement, and there's some racism on the ship, but it's not. It has gotten better and has moved forward a little bit. So there is going to be some movement. Yeah, it's going to have developed in its own way. It's just certainly not the same as on Earth.
Do you have a class system? Because Andrea was saying there was like upper deck people and lower deck people.
Yes, there is.
It is a class system, sort of.
There is definitely an upper deck, lower deck situation. You've got the upper deck is more the politicians and the officers and that sort of thing, and then the lower deck is you've got all to run a ship, just like a cruise ship. You have the machinery and you have the stockyards and that type of thing. So and then you also have the people that run them. So you do have struggles that way, and a lot of the people on the lower decks, because quite often you would find that people, even though even though the teenagers have some choice in what they want to do, there's not as much choices on Earth. Obviously, they can't be a marine biologist, they can't be a rock climber, they can't be a basketball player. So they do feel kind of stuck in what they have to do, and they can apprentice. So most times people just follow in their parents' footsteps. So a lot of the lower deckers feel stuck on the lower deck because it's very hard to get out of the lower deck to the upper deck because you don't have the opportunity. You know, just in our world as well, if you don't have the money to get to college, it's going to be harder for you to get out of, you know, if you want to become a lawyer but you don't have the money to go to college, it's hard for you to become a lawyer, right? So that's not to say that the lower decks are bad. It's just there's a lot of struggle there, and a lot of I think there's more people in the lower decks that feel stuck there, that they can't move forward.
Now, Viviana's also the chief warrant officer, or what is her title?
She's sort of the head, I don't know the exact word for it. I wouldn't say it's stewardess, hostess. It's not like she's a hostess, but she kind of takes care of things on the ship. She has a group of girls that make things comfortable on the ship. In terms of, you know, they run the parties, they host the parties, that sort of thing. And she's changed her job a little bit, where she has sort of turned her girls, and it's not widely known on the ship, but almost like into a segregation. So there is, she has got a group of her girls to give favors to get information. So she's entrepreneurial.
Said every madam ever.
Yes, there's a little bit of that sort of character, but it's all in gathering information and getting furthering herself. So that's a little bit more of the manipulative quality of her comes in.
Is it nice to be back in space?
It is nice to be back in space. Yeah, it's you know, for me, it really is a show about the human condition again, like Battlestar was. Yes, you had amazing space battles, and you had, you know, it was, but to me, it was about these people put under incredible circumstances, and how do they deal with it? How do they move forward? How do they continue on? And with Ascension, it's less about how do they continue on, it's more about finding out who they are and how do they deal with what they're dealing with. You know, you've got 600 people in a tin can, you're going to have a lot of human drama going on, and that's what I was fascinated about. And also the kind of, it's sort of a plan B to humanity. I found it interesting of how these people have developed in their own way. Because they're not exactly like they are on Earth, but they're struggling in their own way, and I just found it interesting.
Can you talk about how your character differs from some that you've played in the past, like Partner 6? She seems to, from what we can gather, it seems that she wields her power differently.
She does wield her power differently, and you know, certainly with 6, there was certainly no sexism or anything like that involved with the character. They were progressive in the other way. With Molly Parker, very strong character, you know, contemporary, obviously, dealt with a little bit of sexism just in a kind of an old boys club, Texas Ranger group. Viandra is, you know, for me, I have never played a character that I usually tend to play strong female characters, contemporary characters, where that's not even kind of a blip on my radar. So it's interesting for me to kind of play, and again, we've just started, so I've only had a couple of scenes so far, so I'm getting to know my character. But to play that myself, of where, you know, how do I defer? I'm not used to deferring. You know, how do I defer? Do I defer? Do I do it privately? Do I do it, you know, would I ever step on the captain's toes, you know, when I shouldn't, and that type of thing. Yeah, I'm just starting. Again, I've only had a couple of scenes so far, so it's ask me that in a year and I have a lot better answer. Yes.
All right.
Great, thank you so much.
Thank you guys.